start. I'm going to put it here because that keeps it upright. Okay, are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, so my name is Morna Gerard and I am interviewing Karen Carson for Georgia State University's Women's March Oral History Project. The date is March 25th, 2017, and the interview is taking place in special collections at the Georgia State University Library. So, Karen, what year were you born in and where were you born?
I was born in Jacksonville in 1973.
Okay, and that's Jacksonville, Florida?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Can you describe your family's political leanings?
Very liberal. All but one. Well, my cousin is the only one. She's sort of the black sheep in that way. But my entire family, my dad was very involved in college. My parents went to college from 68 to 72. And even, my grandfather on my mom's side, he was a Republican, which I didn't even realize until he didn't really talk that much about it. He liked Reagan. And I did a paper on when we were first finding out about the Jewish issues before the war and everything, and I interviewed him. And that was the first time I learned much about that. And he talked about how Jewish people, my mom actually, I think, talked about my granddad too, Pappy. But my dad's parents were both teachers. Pappy was a teacher. They were all very much involved in education and very open about other people. Just always very accepting. And so I grew up next door to my grandparents in North Florida. And so I was very close to them. And so all of that, he was a postmaster and they had a general store in a small town, and my granddad's sister was the principal for the one-room schoolhouse. Basically, it ended up being our church that I went to growing up. So it was very, it's pretty open. And
you're lucky to live that close to grandparents.
We moved next door to them when I was just before kindergarten. So we put together my granddad and my uncles and my dad, and all of us worked together, and we put two Jim Walters frame houses together. So I grew up in a double house. But we grew up next door to them. We had a big pond, and it was good.
That's great. Just for the record, what is your profession?
I am Senior Acquisitions Editor / Program Manager for Macmillan Publishers Statistics, College Statistics textbook list.
So what does that all entail?
It's I'm all but dissertation in English. I actually taught college literature for 7 years, the University of Miami, FIU, and Miami-Dade, Wilson, downtown, and was recruited into publishing and moved to Atlanta. But now this is basically, I started as a rep for a year and a half or 2 years, and I became a specialist, which was covering 5 states, and then I was promoted to editor in 2010 and moved to New York. So basically what I do for statistics is I make sure I know a lot of people who know statistics. I'm in charge of forecasting sales, running the list, helping guide decisions about how books are revised and sort of evolve based on the market needs for introductory statistics mostly. So we own about 80% of the conceptual market for introductory statistics in college stats.
That's pretty impressive.
It's a lot.
When you're at work, do you find that in the workplace that folks are that women's rights are respected and that there's equality in the workplace?
There is and there isn't. It's interesting. So much of publishing is female, it's women. However, the people, it's just like in education in a lot of ways, and most of the administrative higher ups are male. And so our VP right now of editorial he decided when he became in this position about a year ago in our company, new to our company, we acquired his company. We began changing the company to have these program manager positions, and there's one other male out of the 9 of us or 11 now, and he became our manager. Been designated Andy, and I'm like, oh look, you all have penises. Not that he's not great. But Andy, it's just been more painfully clear to me. Yeah. I don't have children or anything, so I see it in different ways, the discrimination, I think. Mm-hmm. And Ben was almost apologetic when he was telling me that Andy would become my manager, because Andy's been with our company about 3 years, not even. His list is not even as big as mine. And there's no other program manager who has been there longer than 3 years. I've been doing this 7 years. Yeah. And I'm fine. I don't want to be that position, but they like, when we get in a room, they sit together, they, you know, it's there. And then my friends who have only recently started having babies in the company, it's a lot of travel involved. You go to colleges and universities all the time in a rep position, or even as a specialist, you travel 5 states, and you have to go to conferences, like our sales meetings, and if you have to pump at a sales meeting, it's like you're out of luck. You have to figure out your own time. There's no daycare or anything, you know, like there are about 175 reps, and if any of them, you know, you have meetings all day long, and all, you know, and everybody does things at night together. You have your regional dinners. No kind of, you know, support for children whatsoever. Especially the new mothers are the ones that have the hardest time. They'll usually bring like their mom or something to stay in the room with the kid, and have to like run up to the room and pump or breastfeed in between meetings.
Now, in your actual workplace, do you have nursing rooms, places where
there is one I would never have known, except that my friend is breastfeeding. There's one in Austin. So they have a room, and it's a cute little room. Like it has a little curtain, and all the moms go in and pump.
So it's not cupboard.
No, it's decent. It looks like it's almost like a, you know, at school you would go up to the nurse's office or something. It looks sort of like a nurse's office, little hospital bed looking thing. But yeah, I never would have known that was there. I don't know about New York. I'm sure there has to be one in the New York office, but the Austin one. It's just mostly, I think. Recently, we had a male actually take paternity leave, kind of like, and in Canada, we have Canadian reps, and so it's pretty, and they get a year,
yeah,
and we don't, and so there's a lot of tension there. So,
how much time do women get for maternity leave?
3 months. Mm-hmm.
And is that time you have to have saved up?
Yes.
Okay.
And you can't use your vacation for it. You can't use your vacation time, like you can't to add on or anything. You're not allowed. And the only reason I have this is because my friend just had a baby 6 months ago.
That's terrible.
But it's amazing compared to what I hear many other people have to deal with.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things we do have is amazing health insurance. The people who own us are German. The Germans, you know, it's Holzbring, it's on Holzbring, and they're very good about taking care of us. I mean, Kara said she spent about $40 in total, and my other friend who's had 2 babies now, $48 in total for the initial visit, not a penny more for the entire pregnancy and birth and everything.
That's really wonderful. Yeah. That's not normal.
It's one of the reasons I'm still at this company. I'm looking, but you know, like, what am I going to get? Because it's so great. It's just fantastic. So anyway.
So, what political party do you support? Are you willing to say that?
Democrat.
Okay.
Definitely.
And most of your family are Democrats?
Yes, absolutely. All of them. And I went to the convention this last spring, and I didn't get to go to inside. I volunteered. Okay. So I just spent 5 days and just helped show people around, and I had to learn about different exhibits and I would do little tours for people. So my friend lives right outside of Philadelphia, and they weren't Democrat, right? And so when all of this stuff started going on, when I went up there, and I was going to the convention from their house, I would take the train in. Serena told me late one night, she's like, no, we changed our affiliation. Wow. I was so surprised because her husband's family is very, like, her father's in security, and he's like the eye in the sky and the Mohican Sun, like he's like in charge of that part. And then the guy she married, Kevin, and his family, they're all doctors, but they're very conservative and have money. And it's always been about fiscal for Republicans.
So what were they saying about this potential administration at that point?
Well, he hated Hillary. Kevin did.
Okay.
Serena's like, I'm not voting the other way. You know, like, there's no way in hell. But I don't know that Kevin even voted. I don't think he voted this time, even though they changed affiliation. But it was more, I think, Serena's like, I was embarrassed.
Okay.
You know, it was crazy.
So they weren't pro-Trump?
No. I mean, they're not dumb, I don't think. I mean, but I shouldn't say that. Like, I feel bad because I know that some people voted for him who aren't dumb, but questionable.
How did you manage to get to volunteer for the Democratic Party at the convention?
I was feeling like I didn't have much point in my life. I didn't like my job, and I just felt like I wasn't making a difference anymore. Not teaching and not being involved. I wasn't meeting new people. So I had points. Like, I had actually started to volunteer some here. I did the Meals on Wheels stuff. I helped out with Open Hand, and I had gone and worked on a house with somebody out in like one of these kind of sketchy. They were redoing this neighborhood, and so I'd gone and like checked in. And so I wanted to do something like that. So I was looking for volunteer opportunities, and that actually came up, and I was like, I should do that. I mean, I'm not a delegate or anything, but I could at least just be around all of it. And I met so many interesting people who just do this kind of thing all the time, or people who volunteer. This one woman was going to the Paralympic, down in Brazil. Was it Brazil or Paraguay or something, But she's like, yeah, I just look on my calendar and figure out what things I can do. And she travels all over the world volunteering for these kinds of things. And she's like, this is how I feel the best use of my time.
That's a great way to live your life.
Yeah.
Would you do it again?
Yeah. It made me think about trying to be a delegate. So I was looking all these things up, and I've wanted to be more politically active. I mean, Emily does all. So, and I've been on the road, and this is part of my job now. The problem with my job now too is I'm on the road like 80%, and it's been really difficult to be as involved as I would like to be. But I'd definitely do something again.
Well, hats off to you for being as involved as you are while you are on the road. I mean,
Thanks.
That's a lot of people would just come home and just like go, I'm tired. But you're actually, doing what you can, which is great.
It's nice to have something meaningful. I mean, textbooks, yes, but still, like, I'm not, I don't know, it's different.
Working for the common good is that's a good thing. Do you have a significant other?
No.
Okay. And you said you haven't had kids, so...
No, I've never been married. I have cats, 2 cats. They're almost 11 this year. So, yeah, that's it.
So you other than the being a volunteer at the Democratic Convention, have you done anything else politically before?
I canvassed for Obama.
You did?
In the first election, and I was in New York during the second election. So I haven't done anything else really besides that.
And you canvassed down here?
Mm-hmm.
What did that entail? Was there a specific area in Atlanta you would go to?
It was down. Go down south again. It's like off the interstate, off 85, into the east off 85. Like it was a very. Actually, where was I? Not Grant Park. It was near Grant Park. Was one of the areas, but it was a lower income area. That was interesting too. One woman, I knocked on the door, and it was like she answered the door and she had been in jail overnight, but it was right before she had to go vote like that day. She's like, I'm gonna go vote before they know. Before anybody, I'm gonna go vote before it gets turned in. Her records done. She's like, before they won't let me, I'm gonna do it right now. We're gonna vote for Obama. And I was like, you get out of here, girl. You go do it. But it was so like, she's like, you're not gonna stop me from voting. So it was just really a good experience.
Well, and that was 2008.
Mm-hmm.
That must have, because that was like this, the mood of progressives was just so buoyant. I mean, that must have been an amazing experience.
Well, knocking on doors and having people just be like, thank you so much, this is awesome, thank you for doing this, and like helping everybody do, it was a really, really positive thing. And I just didn't, this time, unfortunately, I was very doing what I did, and then people kept calling, for Hillary to ask for money. And I was like, I can't give money. I mean, I've already done this thing. I've contributed a good bit of money in different ways, like in my time. But they were relentless. And I got annoyed. And I'm like, I would make sure I would thank them, but I would be like, stop calling me. Like, I can't give you more money. I've done everything possible. So I felt bad about that, but it was so different. I remember getting called with Obama. I would call people for Obama, but it was just different. I wasn't like, bugging the crap out of him to give me a bunch of money, like to just bugging for money. I just felt like this ended up being about a money thing in a lot of ways. And
really, we should have been getting people to vote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was disappointing.
It's a very different,
all the way around.
a very different election.
Mm-hmm.
So, other than doing sort of that political work, have you been involved in other activism? I mean, you said you've done kind of Meals on Wheels type thing, and
open hand stuff.
Yeah. Is there any?
Not so much Not really. I mean, yeah.
Well, it's pretty. It's a good amount that you've done.
Well, when I was teaching, I felt like it was that. I mean, I worked in the writing center at Miami-Dade Wilson. You know, that area too. Like a lot of that was you would hear and be involved in all kinds of things. I was waiting tables at the diner my uncle's 24-hour diner on South Beach, and the people were. That was when I first really learned. I lived in San Francisco for a year when I graduated from college in '95, and that was AIDS was still a big deal. Mm-hmm. And my uncles were just they were there at that point. Now they're in Nashville, but they were so cautionary, like telling me to protective of me, saying just don't sleep around. And like at that point, I had a boyfriend in Miami, and I was like, no way. But then I moved to South Beach, and that was the first time I learned about all of that. And I wanted, again, it was more like white party was the way you gave money to the cause, you know, like you partied. Yeah. Which is, again, a very different way to approach. It's not really activism, but, you know, it was the first time I really became involved in that part.
And did any of your other family members, were they ever involved in activism?
I think my uncle in San Francisco did more, because he worked for Morrison and Foster. I think it's a law firm. Oh. And they had the Mofo Homos, and they did a lot of stuff. And like they walked in the parades. I was there when the Mofo Homos were in the Gay Pride Parade in San Francisco. So fun stuff like that. Yeah. But he didn't talk too much to us about it because he didn't really. I think he finally like came out to my grandmother maybe, 10 years ago. But he's in his 70s. You know, like she was old, and she's like, yeah, whatever, duh. But it was never. We all knew, but it wasn't. You know, so he was less inclined. And my grandfather felt like it was his fault that he, you know, like it was, so he didn't share stuff.
Wow. So had you marched before ever? Was this your first march?
No, okay. It was my first actual march. Yeah. So, and it wasn't much of a march. It was more like a walk around wherever you could get your body to go.
So what was it that made you decide, okay, I need to do this?
Well, I was really upset about Trump. I had been to the convention, and I met Emily a year ago or 2 years now, at my friend's bachelorette party, and just I loved her. She's amazing, and so she was the one who decided to do this when after the election, you know. And I didn't even find out about it until like a month later. Like we went to dinner for my friend's birthday, our mutual friend's birthday, and she said, Karen, you know, we're going to do this. And I'm like, heck yeah, like, count me in. Whatever I can do, I want to be there. So it was nice.
And so you and your mother went together. Did you, once you decided, I'm going to go, did you say to your mom straight away, or
yeah.
How did that all come about?
Well, as soon as I decided I was going to do it, I told her. I didn't even, like, invite her, really, because of her physical ailments. And I just was like, I know she can't. And at that point, when I first decided, I mean, the months before, she really would, there was no way at that point she would have been able to go and do what she did. And so it was really more because physically I didn't think she could do it. And even when she said she was going to go, like the week before, I was like, okay, I just don't want her to come back and be debilitated and then feel guilty for having participated in that, you know?
It's pretty brave of her to...
Yeah.
Considering that she had, you know, some pretty serious physical sort of challenges.
All of that, her back surgery was sore. And then, you know, but I think it's even more powerful though that my grandmother died a year ago, April. She died 2 days after her birthday, April 21st. April 19th was my grandmother's birthday. And my mom had surgery like the day before my grandmother passed away. Like, she had surgery on my grandmother's birthday is when my mom had the surgery. My grandmother ended up going in the hospital from the nursing home that Sunday, like the night before her birthday. My mom had to go have the surgery done. It had already, like, she had to have it done. So mom had to go to Tallahassee, which is an hour away. And she got sicker and sicker. And my brother, literally, I got up when she passed. She was in the hospital. I had just gotten there. I had driven from Atlanta. I wasn't supposed to go until Friday. And I was like, no, I just felt like I needed to go. I got there. The doctor did not want to let my mom out of the hospital because she wasn't really ready. She was still draining, had drainage. Anyway, my brother drove her over, and my grandmother passed away within 20 minutes of my mom getting there. It was like she was waiting.
Yeah.
And I mean, I got there 10 minutes before my mom did, and then everybody was there in the room.
Wow.
It was intense.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
my mom was, the trauma, she was on so many painkillers, and then we had to do the funeral. Like, all of this happened, like, on top of each other, you know, and it was just, I mean, I couldn't stay. I had to come back and work. I stayed as long as I could. And Nick took some time and stayed because she needed help.
Yeah.
I mean, it was good I was there when she had the surgery because she would not have been able, like, I had to wake up with her to take her to the bathroom and to, which is not new, that from her Rex. But it was, God, she had a rough year.
Yeah.
So really
Wow, that
year.
was really amazing then that she actually chose to do this. She's a really neat lady.
Yeah.
So, for the record, which march did you end up attending?
The DC March. Mm-hmm.
And why did you decide on the DC? Was it because Emily?
Yeah, because Emily was going. And I also had not heard anything about what was happening here, for sure. And I just knew if I committed, like, it's too easy to not, when it's local, it's too easy to say, oh, I don't know, you know. So.
How did you feel about the prospect of being on a bus overnight?
Oh, that just didn't bother me at all. I thought it would be fun. I mean, in fact, I saw it as being much more riotous than it was. I think I probably would have been a little more if my mom hadn't been there, you know. So, but yeah, that part didn't bother me really. I think I also thought the bus was going to be a little more comfortable than it was. so I went into it not expecting what it was. We'll talk about your adventures. Can you talk about the sort of the process of like planning to get the bus, and then, you know, because there was what I thought, because I was invited to come talk to your group, the meeting that you had before, was it the week or so before the march, was a very helpful moment for everyone to come together. Do you want to talk about that? Well, it was nice to see people, to know who to expect when I got to the bus, and I had not even considered, you know, having groups of women together, like having a pack, or, you know, that we would need to do that, and it just didn't even cross my mind. And so a lot of the stuff was sort of, it was just nice to feel like someone else was organizing, which isn't, I mean, this is going to sound weird, but I'm so used to having to do everything and organize everything and care for everything that it was just this wonderful chance for somebody else to take the reins and sort of tell me what to do. I'm like, I'll just show up and they know what they're doing, and this is awesome. I love it. I don't have to do anything except be here. It was awesome.
That's great.
So that was really the only, I felt like we got email updates, and I've loved that they've kept up with us after too. Sort of, we're still, you know, getting updates.
Were there any men on your bus?
There was. Well, besides the bus driver, there was one man, and he was so nice. I guess he was there with his wife. I should have asked more. My mom talked to him, but I didn't talk to him. But he's at back with with his wife. He was so nice. He was just like, "How are you doing?" And making sure he took care of everybody. It was sweet. But the bus driver was nice too.
Like, what was the gender spread? Like the age spread?
Well, there was a little girl there. I think she must have been 15. Like, one of the women had her daughter. From there to, I mean, my mom is 6. She's turning 66 this week. So, but I think there were women. I don't know that. Yeah, there were women older than my mom. I think a little bit, but not much. So.
So talk about the trip, the actual trip on the bus.
So, it was funny because I was like. It was so weird because I packed like I was getting ready to go on days, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be back, you know. And I was like, how are we gonna be comfortable? And I travel all the time, so I was just sort of like, this is just overkill. What am I thinking? I don't need to take Depends. I'm fine, first of all, and so my mom was so worried. So anyway, I made little sliders. I made food. Like, I did this little grand picnic thing for us, which was it was a mess. It was everywhere. But we were well fed, very well fed. And it was fun. We got there and we had a big picture of everybody outside the bus, and just introduced ourselves to people who had not been there, introduced my mom a little bit. My mom's very shy, and I'm like, I'm the opposite. So I'm like, this is my mom, Janet. And so we all had to get settled and everything, and it it was fun and get our, you know, it almost caught fire, or there was a fire of some sort, and it was right in the seat right in front of us, and so there was smoke, and I'm like, okay, this isn't starting off well. Like, within the first 20 minutes, like, we're on fire. I know there were issues with the bathroom, but I still used it. I didn't care. I'm like, whatever, it's no big deal. I'm not prissy about that stuff. But it was funny to me. Like, it was pretty quiet. I mean, we left around 7, or a little earlier. And it was fun driving into the city, I remember, because the sun was coming up. Well, no, not really sun, but it was daylight. And just driving into the city so early in the morning, and it's just like, and I'm a morning person anyway, so it was just kind of neat to just sort of see other buses coming in also, and the traffic. And
when you started seeing that, did the energy on the bus change?
Yeah, people woke up, and it just got, you know, everybody was just ready to go, you know, like, sort of energized, and it had gotten cold, so I remember just thinking, like, I hope we're going to be warm enough, and because I was also, like, everybody was wearing, they were like, you were there, wear your legging thing. I'm like, I am not, I'm going to burn up if I'm dressed like that. That's crazy. Like, I sweat when I walk down the street. Like, I'm not, and, but it did get cold, I mean, so everybody had to change and get their things, and what was interesting to me is coming into the city, I was like, all right, I had just got my hair cut, and it's much blonder than it was, and much shorter and funky, and so I was like, but I want to wear my red lipstick, because I couldn't before, it didn't look right, and I'm like, and so I was like discreetly putting on a little makeup, and I'm like, people are going to think I'm a jerk because I'm putting on makeup, and then everybody else started putting on their makeup, and I was like, all right, you ladies, I was like, you're not, we're all a little vain here, it's all good. I felt better. We're getting ready for each other, you know.
Well, it's
so
good in together.
Yeah.
Did you have a hat?
Well, we got one from somebody who had made them on the bus, and so we wore them, and that was fun. Because I didn't expect, I was upset that I had not thought of, I mean, we talked about it, and people said there would be ones, but I didn't anticipate wearing it, and then I just didn't realize how big a deal they would be, and it was so great to have one.
Let's talk about the hats. I mean, how like the actual visual of all of these women wearing hats. I mean, how did you feel when you saw that?
I felt much, okay, so I will say, in the beginning, I'm like, oh, we look silly, but we all look silly together. But the point is that it's, you know, that's the point. It's a solidarity and everything. And I was so happy my mom wore it. We had actually had an incident with my mom on the bus on the way home, and it was in regard to the hat. And some other things, but it was I loved it. I thought it was amazing. I mean, and we had our shirts that matched also.
That's right.
So we had the purple shirts and the sashes and the hats, and so it was just really fun to everybody. We could identify, and then I kept the hat, and yeah, I was really surprised my mom wore hers. I mean, I had to kind of convince her, and so on the way back, it was the thing. We were looking at pictures, and she goes, unfortunately, you really do look like me. And I was like, what? I was like, I think we look pretty. I thought that it was a good thing or whatever. I got really, and I said, do you think I'm ugly? I mean, and she's like, no, I think I am. And I said, you're telling me we just did this whole march, and you're telling me you think that poorly of yourself. I'm sorry, like that doesn't work together. Like, we're here to make each other feel better and stronger, and you're gonna sit there and tell me it's so sad that I look like you, but you think you look ugly. And we had a huge fight. Like, I was very upset for a long, like, through the next morning. I had a hard time, and she's like, well, don't get mad at me. And I'm like, I'm just so disappointed that this is your takeaway. Mm-hmm. That you've looked stupid in the hat and you feel ugly. Like, that's not really what this is about, you know? And so we've had a lot of long talks since then. We went to Utah together on a trip since, and she's told me so many things, and it's just that lack of self-worth, and it's hard to have when you don't have people around you who, you know, don't feel the same way or support each other.
That must have been really tough. I mean, what a major day, and you know, I just like,
it broke my heart.
Yeah.
And I was so, the trip was difficult for me anyway, because a huge part of it was making sure she was okay. So I talked to my therapist about this, and it was very much about I was glad she went, and I think she got what she was able to take away from it was so powerful. Like, I'm so glad, that happened. But the hard part for me was, yet again, I'm like, my experience was different because I was having to care for her rather than be as deeply involved in what was going on. I'm holding her hand, making sure. I mean, we all were holding each other's hands. But that was part of the nice thing, too, is that the people around us were so mindful of her and helping her as well. Like, there's a step coming up, Janet, But, so I was already sort of like, all right, well, she got to do this. Like, she didn't get to do her marching in the 60s because my dad was a jerk. So I'm so happy I gave her. But then for her to say that at the end, I was just like, really? Really? Now you're going to say this? Like, so.
Has she worked through all of that? Or are you
getting
there?
Yeah, I mean, she's getting there. And moving will be a big part of it. But yeah, it was more her. It's like that whole event to me wasn't so much political in a lot of ways as it was for my mother.
Yeah.
Like with our relationship, it was much more personal in that way. But that is the political. I mean, that is the whole point, I think. And so much of what she feels is such clearly a result of her environment and her community or lack thereof.
I wonder how many other, because there was a lot of mothers and daughters went to the march, and I wonder how many other pairings had conversations, maybe not exactly the same,
right.
but things came up because you went through this very powerful thing together.
Yeah.
It would be really interesting to see, I'm sure you weren't the only one that was having a conversation with your mom.
Yeah.
Suddenly you're both doing an activisty thing together, which means you're kind of, it's not just a mother-daughter thing. It's like it's a different relationship that you're having there.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's why.
Oh gosh, my phone. I forgot to.
I'm sorry. It'll.
It's probably her. Her ears were burning.
So, but like, if we talk, some people talked about the hats beforehand, and it was mostly people on the other side, or very, sort of like saying how silly the hats were and stuff like that. What did you feel when like in the big picture, what the hats actually meant, what they,
It was like, I liked having our purple shirts, but the hats it was just a form of just solidarity across, pussy, hey. It's sort of like going to the Eve Ensler, let's scream it, like, it's just a statement of we all disagree with this, what's wrong, these are beautiful, like, hey, and we're all going to wear them, and we're all going to look amazingly pink and perfect on our heads, like, so kiss this, like, it was just so, like, and I think my mom also talked to you about this, where when we first came down over the hill, and just see this sea of people, and I have a picture of that I posted on Instagram, and it's just, that was just like, holy crap, and that was the morning. It hadn't even started. This was like at 7:30 in the morning when this was going on. Well, the rally or that was happening, which we didn't see anything.
So you got in at what time?
I think we drove in around like 6 or 7. Like, it was super early.
So your bus was on time.
Oh yeah, we were like one of the first buses in the parking lot.
Okay.
Like one of the very first ones.
And then how did you get from the parking lot to where the rally was taking place?
We took the metro, whatever it is. What is it called?
Yeah, I think it's the metro.
Yeah.
What was the metro busy when you?
No, it was busy. Okay, it was, but we were far enough out. I think where that was at that point, it was still so early. It wasn't crazy. There were a lot of people, but we didn't have to wait in line. One of the women at, or one of the girls we were with, well, younger women, her mother wasn't there, but she had donated Metro cards. So we had the cards already, and so we could just go right on in, and then we rode, and it was just cake. It was just the simplest thing. And then coming up the elevator, I have pictures coming up the elevator too of everybody going up, and then we took a different train back, so there wasn't the elevator, and when we came back, well, I'm getting ahead, but everybody was singing all these protest songs, like we shall overcome and everything. It was and it was echoing in the body of so it was just a really beautiful, on the way back, as our feet were falling off, waiting, we had to wait. That was a much longer endeavor to get back to the bus, but going out was easy.
I would hope somebody videotaped that.
I think I have some. If I have the video, I think I recorded some of it.
Do you want to donate
yeah,
that?
absolutely. Yeah, I need to. I forgot about
we'll
that.
talk about
Yeah.
that. So you come off of the train and there's all these.
There were a lot of. It wasn't as many. I don't know, like where we got off. It was packed. It was busy, but then it was like everyone was sort of feeding in like streams into this giant reservoir, like and. Just coming over that hill was that main enormous overwhelm, like, wow, unbelievable.
I don't think anyone will forget that moment of coming over the hill.
It was just incredible. And it was, I wish the sun had been out. That's the only thing. Like, that would have been such as, I would have loved that. But then again, it may have been hot, so hey. But it was just this sort of, not ominous. How do I want to say it? Like, hey, we're here, man. Like, watch it. Because it was, it was amazing to see. My mom kept saying, oh, there are men here. And I was like, yeah, Mom, men support women. Well, whether you've experienced that or not, it happens. It's good. And I wasn't so much surprised by that as I was, it was good to see, and I don't felt that I saw enough of the LGBT community. I just expected it to be more, having lived in San Francisco for a year, I wanted to see crazy, and I didn't see enough crazy. I felt like there could have been a lot more crazy. And maybe that was what you get when you have so many more people than would typically do something wearing their hat. They wore their hats. That's their crazy. That was their liberating statement,
And we all did it. So when you're did you were in a how many pack? Did you have like
we had 10.
A 10 pack?
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot to be in one group.
It was either 9 or 10. It was a lot.
So how did you manage to keep together?
We kept screaming, peach pack, and peach pack, peach pack. We'd scream at each other when we didn't see each other. We held arms and hands, like a lot of hand holding and just hanging on. But everybody let you get through. Everyone was also in their own lineage, like crossing, and a lot of coordinating, letting people go first. But it was just the most respectful, and we talked nurturing almost. Mm-hmm. Like people were watching out for each other. You knew other people didn't want to get split up either, so you just made sure you participated and didn't interfere.
And so where were you, because you said you didn't get to see the sort of program part of the rally.
We came in around the corner, around the museum, in the American, Native American, and we just couldn't get past that corner. There was a screen, but you couldn't even really see the screen. You could kind of hear, but not really. And so we just kind of gave up at some point. It took like over an hour to get to that side of the stage, that area where we were. And at that point it was just like, all right, we just got to get somewhere where we can stand still and not be in this jumble. So that was when we went and sat out by the mall, and we rested a minute because we've been walking and standing for 5 hours almost. I mean, and we only sat maybe half an hour. We just finally, my mom, we had to help her get on the ground. She just sat, she's like, oh. I can't believe she was able to stand that long that day. I was dying. I know she was dying, and it was cold and everything towards the end. But we waited rested for about half an hour, and then it was time for everything to start. We talked to a poli-science professor he teaches at Boston University, and he and his wife were talking to us, me and my mom, about their kids and what they were doing. And he's like, I'm giving a lecture on this tomorrow. I'm going back and I'm speaking to my student. He's like, I'm not his student. He was actually doing an event and speaking about the march itself. So he was taking notes, and
that's great.
They were so nice, but it was fun.
So did you take a chance to use the loos while you're there?
I went once. No, did I? I went once. At some point I did. But it was, people waited. It wasn't bad. I mean, concerts are work, it was grocery. It didn't bother. I mean, it takes a lot to gross me out, so I'm fine.
So did you pack all your Cliff Bars and all that stuff?
Oh my gosh, so I wish I had packed more. Mom and I bought these little purses at Target because we knew we would want to have something across us but small, so we bought those, and we had our phones. and chargers and stuff, which we didn't use them that much anyway. So, what did we put in there? I have these like the bison bars. I love those. So I had like one of those, and but we had eaten so much overnight. Like I had packed so many daggum. I mean, it was so much. I'm like, I'm not hungry. I can't even imagine, and I don't want to carry it. Like, so we did get hungry, and the girls we were with, everybody had stuff on them, so we like ate some of that. But when we got back that night, we were definitely ready to. We're like, yes, we're stopping at a restaurant. We don't care what you say. We're stopping and we're eating. We're hungry.
Did you carry a sign?
No, I carried my mom.
I think that's totally
yeah. I was
fair
just
enough.
like to think. I would have loved to have had something. I think some of the people that were with the girls with us had signs, but I was like, the last thing I want to do is try to hold for more stuff all day long.
But looking around, were there any signs? Were there any that stood out as like your favorites?
I have pictures on Instagram too of these. So like there was a no country for old men, and we're all in this pickle together. And there was a guy dressed up as a dill pickle. And I love pickles, so that was awesome. And but there were so many that they were hysterical. I mean, the signs were great. I mean, I can't. They're so witty and fun. Yeah. I can't think of other particular ones right now. But that was 90% of the fun was walking around and looking at all the different creative signs. One of the ones I thought was most powerful was actually sort of the vagina, like the uterus and the anatomy. And it was interesting to me because I feel like, the anti-abortion rally after, like, the next week or whatever, and I thought about they're carrying around I mean, those signs are horrible. It's nightmarish. But they get upset, when I say they, whatever, to get upset about having the female body is so gross. But it represents, I think, everything that happens on television too. Violence and killing and blood and like hurting people, and all of that's awful. But how dare you show consensual, beautiful bodies and sex and nakedness? That's horrible. But you'll do all these other violent things. That's okay to see. Captain Fantastic, have you seen that? I watched it it's now my favorite. Maybe I would, it really juxtaposes it. Like, it's amazing because it makes you really, think about that a lot too. It's beautiful.
When you, like, thinking back to, like, deciding to go to March, is there an issue in amongst all of the issues that meant most to you?
The whole chauvinistic, the idea that we would make this person president who had blatantly been so dismissive and disgusting. I mean, if he and Billy Bush want to say that, all right, fine. But don't make him our president. I mean, the people, okay. Yeah, and then my mom's friends would say, well, my husband and my sons talk like that. And I was like, well, if they did, if they were mine, I wouldn't tell people. It doesn't make it any better. But that an entire country would allow this completely just obnoxious, disgusting person and his personality. I've been listening to a podcast recently. It's called God Save the Pod or something. But it's for speechwriters who worked for Obama, and one of them had worked for Hillary before, and they talk about issues. It's fabulous. But they were just talking about the contrast of, Obama was such a good man, and how there was never any doubt. And the one guy, Lovett, I think, is the one who had worked for Hillary, and he was like, oh, I had to go work for Obama, and it was like, he said, I had to drink the Kool-Aid at some point, and he said one of it was mainly just Obama is such a good person and thoughtful, and he's so respectful, and his language is so carefully, the speechwriters, my God, I mean, they said he would just take apart certain things, and you're like, he makes so many edits, and you're just so happy when you see them because he's such a beautiful, eloquent person and means it from the heart. This guy, if he means it from the heart, all the worse. And that tears me apart. That, to me, was the biggest thing. This character, he has his character, whatever that might be, lack that.
When you looked around at other marchers, what other issues were you sort of seeing all around you?
Well, I think it was definitely abortion, pro-choice, absolutely well, healthcare in general, obviously, and I feel strongly about the LGBT, you know, rights to me and gay marriage and I mean, I'm trying to think if there were things that stuck out that were different. I do remember feeling like, oh, right, that's there too. Sort of I think, international, you know, concerns, immigrants. How can I forget that? But that to me, I mean, having lived in Miami for 10 years, living in San Francisco, living in New York, everyone I know, I mean, I would teach a class and I would be the only person born in the United States in that room in their college or working at the diner on South Beach. Half the people who were there, my uncle and his partners hired under the table, but they paid Social Security, I mean, they paid taxes, but don't get to reap the benefits. And then, I mean, people who were so that was all of that. Just, it pains me.
Did you see any counter-protesters?
No, but on the on the train on the way back that night, there was a guy with a Trump hat, I think it was. And he didn't say anything. It was like, we were all in our pussy hats, and it was like, hey. He was clearly like, he'd come as a tourist, and it's the wrong day. He missed that memo or something, I don't know. So, or it was left over from the inauguration, more likely, but yeah, no, I didn't remember seeing any.
Did you feel safe throughout the whole march?
Absolutely. Like, probably safer than, it was amazing. There was never any doubt. I mean, I kept thinking it could turn into something, it would be easily a terrorist attack, and how, you know, and it was in the back of my mind because, I mean, I remember the G8, the protests in Miami when I was living there and things like that. It was just like, that was really scary. And instead, the security, the people who were there were so nice and so welcoming and so, you know, so that was just really, really, I typically expect officers to be brusque and sort of what we were talking at that meeting. We talked about it might, if they're rude, it's because they've got a lot of stuff going on. Not at all, not in the least.
So you had some interactions with some of the police officers?
They would say, welcome to the city, you know, like, I'm glad you're here, thank you for doing, you know, like, everybody was just very thoughtful and welcoming. It was good.
Before the actual, well, before I go down, the chants.
Yeah.
Did you have any favorite chants?
Well, so everybody sort of had the same ones, you know? So what was fun was, we started the Gwen Stefani, "This shit is bananas, E-A-N-A-N-A." That was my favorite, because it was different. Nobody else was doing it. It was fun. Like, they were all great, and they were all very inspiring. But I like that because nobody else did it. It was ours. And it was Gwen Stefani. She's awesome, so hey. That was my fave.
Did you walk all the way to the White House?
We walked by.
Okay.
Towards the very end. It got late, and we had to get back. It turns out we didn't, because the bus driver was like almost an hour late. So we got back and stood in the cold. But yeah, we tried, we were going to, and it was just still so crowded.
Yeah.
And so busy, and there was no real, and then cars were starting to actually drive on the street again, so it was sort of like, I had a friend though who I went to high school with. She's actually finishing her PhD in fiction writing at FSU right now. And she taught at UCLA before and all this stuff, but she went to the march, and the one odd person from my hometown. And she stayed at night, and she was posting pictures on Instagram of like where all the people had put their signs down, these huge stacks of signs and all the hats and all of this. So it was kind of fun to see her post-march pictures. That was cool.
Before the march, how did the march itself live up to your expectations?
I think it was just that, I think it was more than what I expected in the sense that my mom was there.
Mm-hmm.
So it became a different expectation once she said she would come. I think originally I thought it would be more like a party, you know? we got a bunch of women, and we're all by ourselves, we can do whatever we want. But it was a much more, it was just more organized and grown up, you know, and so it was in that way different. And then, and again, I think I probably would have been more party-ish, like drinking or doing things, you know, like had it more, if my mom had not. But her being there made it more about, it really made it about empowering her in a way, I think.
Wow.
Because I've always done everything I wanted. I know how to get around and do my own stuff. And she's learning and changing, and that this was like just a kickoff, you know?
Yeah.
So and then ultimately it changes my life when hers is changing drastically.
Speaking of party, was there anyone on the bus on the way home who was partying?
Everybody, they talked about it. They were like, girl, we got wine and let's drink and we got back and everybody's like, out like a light. It was like, never mind, I'm done. Give me some food. I'm out.
It was a long day.
Yeah.
Were there any moments throughout the day that you can recall that you felt like emotional?
Oh my gosh, I cried several times.
What made that happen?
Just seeing everyone together and just being like, we'd start to chant, I'd start crying. Because it would fill your body. Like it just permeates every part of your soul, you know? And so that was just, I mean, I think about it now. I mean, my mom and I were trying to talk about it. And we got home and like we couldn't, like, never mind, we'll talk about it later. This is hard. Like, it's just, and I kept saying, why am I crying? This is so weird. And I'm like, okay, I'm emotionally overwhelmed and that's okay. This is going to happen. I'm just like, okay, and no sleep and we're hungry. I guess that's it too. But it was really the chanting. It just at the points where you would feel the most connected. It was really it. And we came back that morning, when we got back, Mom and I watched on all of the rally part beforehand because we hadn't seen any, and we're just bawling. I mean, even Madonna made us bawl. I mean, it's fine. For other reasons, maybe, I don't know. But it was great.
There were a lot of speakers. Were there any that you just thought, wow, I mean, obviously most of them made you cry, but was there any that stood out to you?
So interestingly, I felt like, well, I love, oh gosh, I can't think of names right now. Michael Moore, I loved. And I know, I just was surprised that they had, he was great. He's like, go call every day, do this every day. He's like, make it happen. And that was really empowering. I liked the speaker, Van Jones. I love him. I just love him. I think Booker Jones for president next time. I know. But I just feel like, and again, I'm picking out men, but it was surprising to see the men in that way for me more than my mom was seeing them. And I'm like normal men, but these are men who are like, took that time that day to do this for that. And that, yeah, Gloria Steinem, of course she's going to be there. Like, those are typical. I want to see the people who I didn't expect, So, Michael Moore's was pretty powerful, but I'm trying to think who else was there that, I was surprised to see Ashley Judd, and hers was good. She did a good job.
Yes.
I really liked that. I know she's active. I mean, I know she's pretty, and for being a good Southern woman, I like that. It's good.
and what she was talking about was it's like, it goes along with like these women parts that people find dirty and it's like,
the Eve Ensler, it's that same kind of sort of empowerment. Like, what the hell's wrong? I mean, hey, it's guys talk about all kinds of gross things they do in the bathroom. Like, why can't? And that's cool. Yeah. But she was good.
So, when you got home, what did you do with your day?
So we got back at the bus. We got off the bus and I said we're going to eat breakfast. So we ordered to-go food from, what do you call it, on North Highland, the Highland Bakery. So we ordered all this stuff and picked up breakfast on the way home and got in pajamas, like bathed and got in pajamas and sat on the couch. We watched that. And then, we really didn't go fall asleep. It was crazy because we were so tired, but we were just sort of lazy and sat on the couch. We watched that, and then I made dinner. Actually, I think I cooked, and then we went to bed at like 8.
Yeah.
So we went to bed pretty early. But it was just sort of, again, the emotional part too, just sort of like, okay, let's just let the TV be on. It was hard.
And were you watching coverage of the march most of the day?
We did it in the morning. We watched mostly. We picked the things we really wanted to see, and then we just, I think we watched other movies or something later in the afternoon. It was more just like you had to kind of rest the brain after. But yeah, all of that was the first thing we did when we sat down and when we got home was watch the rally stuff and the coverage and people talking about it.
Which channel did you watch?
I pulled up stuff from YouTube.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of it was, you know, they had done footage, I guess, there somehow or something. But then we did watch, like we always turn and look at Fox and CNN and like troll around. And so it was, you know, I almost didn't want to see what they were saying in some ways because you don't, we watched for a few minutes, but it was more again the YouTube stuff. And I feel like it's their experience, and I don't want them to suck out the parts and turn it into their story. I want it to be my narrative for at least a good 24 hours.
That's a really good thought, actually.
Fortunately.
While you're still trying to process it, don't let other people process it for you.
Yeah.
No, you were very wise to have done that.
Well, and you see, I had my images, my perspectives, my pictures, my things I had taken on Instagram and people I had seen from my friends, but once it starts to go that way, then everything gets...
Did you feel, though, looking back, that generally it was covered well by the media?
I think it was covered well by... Oh, you know who we did watch? So we came back and we watched Trevor Noah and Jon Stewart. Like, I looked for those guys. That's what I wanted to see, you know? And see Colbert, you know, those were the things we wanted to look. And so that's where I got the best, I felt, and the most close to my experience of the coverage is what I agreed with was how they showed it, you know. And so that part, yes. But I didn't watch the Fox stuff that much after, really. I think it was covered pretty well. I think they did acknowledge, I mean, obviously the inauguration in contrast was the big emphasis there.
Yes. I had actually been there the day before. It was very different.
Yeah.
So, what did you think of your bus captains?
They were fantastic. They're amazing. They're so great. So great. I mean, and Emily, just by the way, she's in the hospital. She had something happen to her. I was at Kara's last night, and Kara was telling me she's been in the hospital. She had some infection or something.
Oh, dear me.
So I was going to call her today. I haven't been. But they just, you know, they had it together. And when the bus driver was late, everybody's calling. And again, it's like being taken care of. Like, it's in their hands. Like, I know they are going to make it happen.
That must be
awesome.
Just wonderful. So since the march, how have you been feeling?
I'm so glad to see people continue to march and to protest. That part has been very inspiring, that people didn't just do that and go home. The continuation of sort of the anger, the statement that you can't do this. In fact, when they repealed the bill yesterday, I'm like, okay, I don't know how I feel about it, because I sort of wanted it to just get trampled in some ways, you know? Like, I want him to see that he can't, the art of the deal doesn't work in the same way across, it's not a business in the same, you know? And so I've been so angry with some of the things, and again, it keeps blowing me away, and I don't know why I'm so surprised to hear the crap he says, because it's exactly what he's always done. But yeah, people continuing to protest and to march. And I think, you know, Emily, they've kept sending emails about when there are events and when there are things we can do. I wanted to go to the Planned Parenthood march that they had, but I flew in and it was over. Like, I landed when it was supposed to be over that afternoon, like at 4. So I've been really annoyed about my job interfering with my ability to participate in my community and do things that I think are actually more important right now.
Have you been contacting your politicians?
And signing all the letters and doing all of this. I mean, as much as anytime there's anything I can do that, you know, time-wise is working out, I'm doing everything with that. But it's still, I I prefer to go and do some things, and I just have not made the time.
Did you hook up with any of the Indivisible groups?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So the rest of your family, well, obviously your mother was very happy that you marched. What about, you have a brother?
Yeah, my brother's in Tallahassee, so he's 3 years younger, and he was really happy that we went. He was proud of us. He was so proud of Mom for going, because he's like, I can't even believe she did it. And then my mom's brothers, you know, my uncles, they were happy. Carol, my uncle's wife that lives in Tallahassee, she was just so excited that we went. I think she probably would have gone if it had not been, I don't know. She's an interesting bird. But what I loved more in some ways was my cousin, so my mom's first cousin, so their son and daughter. So my third, she's 21, she's barely 21. But her family, that side, is very Republican, and they're all they are the Trump people, and they make nasty comments. I'm not on Facebook. I haven't been in 3 years, thank God. But I hear, and they say things, and it's her uncle. But she acts, she does performance stuff in Tallahassee, and she's beautiful. And it was just so, I felt so good because she was texting me and asking me about things, and we talked about it. And it helped her feel like she had someone to connect to in the family that was supportive of what she's doing, and she doesn't agree with her grandmother, the French teacher, who likes Trump. So it was really, that felt special to have a connection with Megan.
Yeah, that must have been really important for her to feel like there's someone that is blood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that is doing the right thing.
And her grandparents, she feels like they don't like her. I mean, they're very harsh and critical of her because, I mean, she got a tattoo, and she's sort of wild, and she's, but very, very liberal, very, very open, and she feels they don't approve of her, and they really do like me. They little do they know, and so it's so Megan's like, yes, I have Karen on my side, so I felt connected there. It was good.
That's great. What about your friends and coworkers?
Oh yeah, everybody. It was great to come back and have conference calls. And people are like, yeah, we did, everybody's saying how they had done either the local march or had made the trip. One of the people I work with, Brooke, flew from San Francisco to D.C., and she marched in D.C. and flew back. She just flew. That was all she went for. And I love her. She said, it just was and that was empowering, too, to have colleagues who feel that strongly and were open. And so in that case, in our company, everyone is supportive in that way. There's no... Well, I think that's why Lou felt like he had to go around and tell everybody he likes Trump, is because it's so assumed that you are, liberal and supportive of women. And so it would be weird if you said something else. That would be a different environment.
Was there anyone within, sort of, obviously with your immediate sort of group of people at work, they're supportive. Was there anyone, friends or family or people at work or distantly at work who disapproved of you marching?
I didn't feel it. No, I know my mom did more than I.
Yeah,
but that's why I don't go back there. I mean, nobody. If they did, they didn't say it, and I think I don't make it easy for somebody they know they're not going to change my mind. They wouldn't argue with me about it or say anything. The one friend I have who probably would have disapproved, I haven't talked to in a while, and maybe that's why. I mean, if you think about it, I have not bothered because I don't want to hear it. And I make a choice to just filter that part and not open up, not allow them to tell me they didn't like what I did. So what?
That's a great attitude.
I really don't care.
But now your mother did have people
yeah,
say mean things.
And they were saying there were naked people and gross things happening and making out, and I was like, I said, Mom, seriously. My fourth grade teacher was one of the ones who my mom was working with, that was like, look at these pictures. And my brother told us that those pictures are from a march from a totally different thing years ago. It wasn't even from any of the women's march. It was fake news, basically crap on Facebook that she was pulling up and saying, look at what happened. And I was like, that's not what happened. That's not how it went. And yeah, she just felt like she wasn't able to share the experience, and it was like her trying to convince people that it wasn't a bad thing. I'm like, why would you have to convince someone that a women's march is yeah. So.
But she's making changes.
She is, yeah. She's in Asheville right now. She'd stopped, her birthday's this week, so she'd stopped here on Wednesday night. We went to Babette's for dinner, and then she drove up Thursday, and they're looking at apartments and things up there, houses to rent. So she's looking there, and she said she lived in Tallahassee, and I was like, it's not far enough away. But it's also, you know, my brother's there. I'm like, you need to go somewhere more not Tallahassee is either college or the government, you know, and I'm like, somewhere like Asheville where there's smart retirees and classes you can take and things you can do that are different and unique in a different environment, different weather. Do something. If you're going to do it and this is going to be your last big move, go big.
So she's like ready just to actually...
She had rented an apartment because we sold all the property and everything when my grandmother passed away. We had property next to each other. And so her lease is up in October. So she has to do something or have some idea of where she wants to go. And I was like, well, you know, either love what you're doing and say I'm going to be there, or say I'm only going to go for a year, rent furniture even, you know, just give yourself the mobility and the freedom, because there's no reason you can't go wherever you want. So.
Do you think the march and all of these activities helped kind of push her toward that?
Well, that and my grandmother passing away last year, because she wasn't tied down, and she had not even, and between the back surgery and my grandmother, I don't think she'd even and she had just retired from teaching 37 years the year before that. So I think it was getting her brain into a space where she gave herself that opportunity to even consider doing something on her own and leaving this community, this place where she's lived her entire life. Yeah. I mean, she's coming out of the shell. But yeah, absolutely, like seeing that there is support out there and that there is a community and a conversation to be had where she doesn't have to feel apologetic for being strong and happy and doing what she wants.
Can you imagine living that way? Like,
no, I can't. It's awful. I've seen way too many, and then friends I've had from high school, I can't even talk to anymore because I assume, you know, you have a conversation and you assume there's a particular level that you can talk from, and I'll say things and they just look at me like, I'm like, oh, right. You've never been to New York. You've never left, you know, traveled except for a cruise to the Bahamas. Like, you don't, that's not the same thing as like cultural experiences. And
really thinking about where you're going.
And being amongst people who are not just your white middle class Americans. Like, it's, they don't go where they're not, where they feel uncomfortable. They just stay where
not happy.
Yeah.
So we're kind of at like 2 months out. Yeah. What do you hope will happen?
Oh my gosh.
That's a big question.
What I hope will happen is that there will be some settling down. That instead of trying to push everything through so quickly, that there will be more discussion of what kinds of things are happening politically. I think this was a good... we're getting there. Like, the president's beginning to realize that just because he thinks something can happen doesn't mean it's going to. That just because it's not this self-fulfilling prophecy, just because he's been able to make it work and he got to be president, doesn't mean he's going to be able to ramrod everything now. And so I'm praying that there is some sort of backing off of all this craziness. In some ways, it's like, I don't want him to... Pence is, it's like the devil, at some point now. We know how crazy he is. We know to expect crazy. But calculated, intelligent, evil people, evil doers are worse. So I do hope something's settled down. It's almost as if when I go to read an article, I'll start reading. I was reading this article this morning from the Washington Post about them taking, not voting. And I wasn't aware of all of the, I knew that the whips and everything, like trying to get people around, and I knew that Trump had specifically courted people, but they had quotes from conversations, and I was just, I closed it up. I'm like, I can't even, I'm like, it, again, not surprising, but seriously, it's disgusting. He's an idiot. And people believe that. So I can't imagine 4 years.
Well, there's an election in 2 years.
Right.
Is there anything that you fear?
I mean, the greatest fear has already happened, I think, that part. So now it's how we change it. Yeah. And again, that podcast where the speechwriters, they were saying, you know, it's the craziness, but talking about local politics too, and how we do have the ability to take the power back, and how so many people, that Obama was so wonderful, that so many people were just like, oh great, he's there. Now he'll do everything, he can take care of it. And they were like, he can't do it by himself. And he said, so we are, you know, sowing our own seeds of lack of participation earlier.
Yeah. So
we've hopefully learned a lesson, which is why I do want to be more active.
So do you think you'll go to, I probably have already know this, but you think you'll go to any future marches?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I just want to see how different they are. And, you know, also not just a women's, but I want to see other people involved. Like, I want to see what happens for other causes. The Planned Parenthood March, I really wish I had been able to be here, because it is encouraging to see that we're all supporting other issues too, it's not just about women. And again, I do feel, you know, the Gay Pride Parade is the closest to a march that I get, you know, when I've gone to several of those in San Francisco, New York, here. That's actually the closest, I think, to being in a march, definitely, the New York Gay Pride Parade, because everybody's in the streets, and
I think it's going to be a big one this year.
Yeah.
Right. Are you planning to go to the science one?
No, I don't know about it. Tell me.
April 22nd. And there's going to be an Atlanta march as well.
It's a weekend. Is it a weekend?
It's a Saturday.
Okay, good. Because I know I'm out of town that week. I know, but yes, I will be there.
Yes.
Yes.
I think it's around Candler Park.
That's awesome, because I just walk there. Because I live on the Old Fourth Ward, so that's easy. So easy. Not that that's why I would go. I mean,
so do you think that since the march that the momentum has been kept up?
I think, yeah, I feel like it is, but I don't know if that's because I've selectively chosen who I'm talking to and who I, you know, ask questions of. I do feel, I see it, okay, and again, this is but late night news, I love watching those guys, because I feel like every night, you know, it hasn't gotten stale. They continue to make astoundingly astute observations about different things, you know, there. And I do see these new podcasts popping up. Like, this is a new one just since January. You see people like, and again, I know it's because I'm probably looking for these sorts of things, but I do feel like it's still there.
When you think back, was there anything that totally surprised you, came out of left field, that was like, wow, this was not what I expected for the whole experience?
I didn't realize that there would be so many marches in other places that would be so big. I think that was more the global experience, that global community, and sort of I was just blown away by how many people showed up, not just in DC. I thought it would be much more, you know, of like one big one and then smaller. It was huge everywhere. It was wonderful.
Yeah, I think every location that was having one, it was bigger than they expected it to be.
So great.
Yeah.
And that was amazing.
There's a lot of us are going to have to try and cope over the next couple of years, maybe beyond. What do you think would be good strategies for enabling us to cope with this situation?
I think it is keeping the momentum up and going to the marches and keeping in touch with each other about, I'm going to see this politician, or we're going to hold this event, let's get together. And just to continue talking about it, not to let the tragedy of what comes out of Trump's mouth every day make you feel it's any less powerful, because I'm hoping it settles, but in the same sense, like at the same time, no less angry, no less, reactive, or active,
It's a very good point. And I have one final question. If somebody is planning to go to another march, what's your piece of advice for them?
I would say, I think I would have, as fun as it was on like going together with a group of women, I would have flown my mom, or I would have flown and met people there. Or all of us fly in, we'll get a hotel room, plan ahead further ahead, so that it can be a little bit more of an experience. I would have preferred to have had a smaller group in some ways, to bond with 5 other women and just my friends specifically, and make it our big girl trip together or do a march with a group of people, a small group, just to have a more intimate kind of like, and then that conversation afterwards, not just with my mom, but then with people I already know, and I know why they're saying the things they're saying, and I understand the context of their experience.
I'm going to follow that because it just there's something you said there that makes me think of that. Do you feel like we all have like a shorthand for talking about things? Like those of us who went to a march,
Absolutely.
there's this insider kind of like.
Yeah, well, I'm on conference calls now, and we had these program manager calls, and I was like, well, remember at the march, and they know. And I was like, oh, well, at the women's march, and everybody's like, yeah, the women's march. And I'm like, yeah, you weren't there, were you? But absolutely, it's an experience, and it's a connecting piece. So.
Well, I have no more questions. Is there anything you want to say to finish up?
I just am so glad that you're doing this. I really appreciate it, and I'm excited to be a part of it tomorrow and to be able to be on the other side. I mean, that helps create I know how to sort of, it helps me.
And it's a good form of activism that we are creating something that will live forever, that will document this really important moment that we all kind of experience.
Well, and I never would have even thought about it for this, like the oral history thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, of course there are going to be these really, I mean, it's wonderful. And like from graduate school, we have all, of your readings of your Barth and your, all of your memento kinds of things we read, and trauma theory and everything else. And I'm like, this is living it, and this is recording it and creating those artifacts for like, if I did ever have a child. It's pretty darn cool.
Well, I'm really glad that you're participating in all of this as well.
Thank you so much.
Yay.
I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, this is awesome.